All right, everybody, welcome back to the Never Stop Building podcast. I'm your host, Sam Kaufman. I have with me Tomas Keenan. Thomas is a father of three, best-selling author of Unfuck Your Business, COO of Break Free Academy, and he is the ultimate integrator. What's up, Thomas?
What's up, man? I appreciate being here. This is typically a role reversal for me because I'm usually the one who's interviewing people on my podcast. But I like to start off like this, and this is no bullshit either. Like, I'm truly grateful for the invite here, getting to have a real conversation with you as another genuine human, and then ultimately having that conversation impact your audience.
Dude, I think we could have wrapped it up right there, and that would have been great. No, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on, man. I know that you are busy. You have 500 things going on. I watch it all the time. You are helping people and impacting people all over the place. I appreciate you making time to impact people here. I really do. So yeah, let's let's just spend a couple minutes. Let's spend a few minutes talking about Unfuck Your Business.
Sure.
Because that is quite the book, and I'm watching it transform people all over the place, left and right. I don't know if it's always popped off the way it is right now. It probably has, but I mean, talk about it.
Yeah, it's gone in waves for sure. Like it'll peak up and then it'll calm down for a couple of weeks, and then it'll peak up again and then calm down. But it's been pretty damn hot since it was released. I'll give you the backstory, okay?
Okay.
Started doing a bunch of self-development on myself. And yes, I am the COO of Break Free Academy, which is Apex, those masterminds. However, I started as a client there first, right? A lot of people don't know that. So I started as a client, and I'm in this whole self-development journey, and I drive home one day, and my last business was a service-based business. We installed GPS tracking devices in commercial vehicles. So we were literally on the road going to everyone's facility, doing the work at their job site or their facility. So I'm on the road long one day, and I started listening to a bunch of audiobooks because that was the only time I can get reading in. So I just wrapped up an audiobook, and I remember backing my truck into my driveway. I was living in New York at the time, and I'm like, man, that'd be really cool one day to write a book. And I literally smacked myself in the back of the head and said, come on, man, it's just a pipe dream. And fast forward a couple months later, and I was in Apex. I joined Apex Entourage in May of 2018. And I realized that, wow, there's a lot of dudes in here who, not just dudes, like just people, women and men who've written books. And to top it off, the founder of this company is 7 days older than me, and he's up to 14 books. And if you know anything about Ryan Stewman's story, like, he's been through the shit, between divorces and going to prison twice, and he was just dealt a really shitty hand of cards right out of the gate as a kid.
I was gonna say, that's it. That's all there is more, actually. So.
But my point is, like, here I am. I'm middle-class suburban Tom who really hasn't had any struggles his whole life, and I got a big fat goose egg for books written. So seeing Ryan influence me, and seeing some of the other people in the group, I'm like, and no offense to them, those people who were around at the time, but I was like, well, if he could write the damn book, I know I can too.
Sure.
So that right there was enough to spark, we'll call it, taking action in me. I reached out, had a conversation with an editor, and that was November or December 2018. And then by, I think it was June 19th or June 20th, somewhere around there, my book was released on Amazon of 2019. So end of June 2019, book was released. By August of that year, it had hit bestseller. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It was cool. I learned a lot about it, and it's one of the key things that we teach inside of Break Free Academy. It's part of building your machine, is actually writing that book, because what happens is it establishes you as the authority in whatever the hell vertical or industry you're telling the world you're an expert in. Right? I mean, man, I've been able to leverage that book in so many different ways. Not just, hey, I'm an author. I'll give you a quick, for instance. We go at my ex-business partner, myself, we go to San Diego for a conference. It's the world's largest GPS tracking company. They're throwing their conference, and they just opened up and basically said, hey, we're actually going to start hiring subcontractors to work for us directly. We're a subcontractor company, so I want in with these big boys, because they do volume, like big volume. And there's like this poor dude who's running that end of the company. he's surrounded by the sharks, and the sharks are the 10 or 15 other guys just like us who are trying to get attention from this guy. And they're literally surrounding him, talking to him, asking him questions, handing him business cards. And I walked over there and I'm just like, man, I can't believe these idiots. They look like fools. They look like puppy dogs jumping on this dude.
Yep.
I walked over there, this is rule number one that Ryan Stewman taught me: is never leave your house without a copy of your book. Or let's not say your house, but on a trip. Like, you go someplace, you always have a copy of your book in your backpack, and it's a signed copy. I walked over there while everyone else is handing out business cards. I take off my backpack, unzip it, and I hand the dude a copy of my book. And I was like, hey man, I'm not here to bother you or see you're busy with these guys over here. And I walked away. Now, about a week later, I get a phone call from this guy, and he signed us on almost immediately and awarded us a contract for this company had won a government contract. And when I say a government contract, they won a contract for every government vehicle on the continental US.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So he gave us the Eastern Seaboard United States Coast Guard.
Wow.
So from Maine to Florida, we did every Coast Guard vehicle install in over a course of a couple of months.
Sounds like an okay ROI.
Yeah, not a bad ROI to hand the guy a book that cost $7.99.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
You done writing your book yet?
I'm literally writing as you're talking. Thank you. Yeah, I guess maybe you'll be my accountability person on writing a book. I do want to ask you something though. As you started, so I know a little bit about your old business, but you said, you went on the self-development journey, which is what led you connect with Stewman. You see Stewman doing this, you think of writing a book. You're like, what am I doing?
Yep.
Why am I not doing it? You had a really successful business. You had a fairly large business. Like,
yep.
Why did you start going on a self-development journey to begin with? You had everything that everybody says they want, right? I mean, you had it all. You had the money, you had the big business. Why'd you even do it? You're in New York, Stewman's in Dallas.
There's two parts to that answer.
Okay.
When I first started my self-development journey, it was not that successful business that it wound up becoming. Right. So the story goes like this. I'm a big firm believer in life-altering events. Okay. Life-altering events to me are like getting married, having a kid, God forbid, a massive medical emergency that happens to someone, either yourself or a loved one. Like, those are life-altering events. Okay. Life-altering event comes in September 2009, and I get married. And that was July. 2 months later, I start my second company, which was the Top Class Installations, which is GPS installation company. We go about 5 years into that company, and it's myself, my partner. We're grinding, dude. Like, we're just out in the field doing all the installs ourselves. We had both had a failed business prior, and we went into this new company and made every single mistake over again. Okay. We were just technicians. We weren't business owners. Right. We knew how to do the work, and we were enough people persons. We were good enough with people where they would come and feel comfortable giving us their money, and then we would go in and we would do what we said we were going to do and get the work done. Right. And you start to gain traction in word of mouth, the old school way, if you do that long enough, but it is a long, hard journey. So 5-year mark, my wife comes to me and says, guess what? I'm pregnant. Okay. Boom. Life-altering event number 2 comes in. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I sat with it for a couple of days, and then a couple of days into it, I was like, oh shit, I have to become a responsible adult. It's time. I'm now 35 years old, and I actually have to become an adult. So I started looking at my life. I started looking at the business, and I'm like, okay, cool. The business is great. I don't know. I make at the time 130, 150 grand a year. Like, I'm grinding my dick off to go make that money though.
Yep.
Right. My partner the same way. And he's 10 years older than me. I'm looking at him and I'm like, I don't want to be his age doing this. Okay. Cause it's wearing on his body already. Yep. I'm not like taking care of myself. There's got to be a better way. And me being smart enough to realize that I didn't know it all is what kind of sparked the idea for me to go out and find a coach, find a mentor to go help me put the pieces of the puzzle together to make this a real company that didn't need my interaction each and every day to push the buttons and pull the levers. So went and hired the first coach. The first coach told me two things, and then he retired. Literally like 6 weeks after we hired the guy, he retired.
His final words.
Yeah. Rule number one, if you're going to work with me, you're going to read. And he handed me a book. Rule number two, and this is after him working with us for 2 weeks or so, he's like, you guys need a CRM, and like now. So I went on this whole journey looking for a CRM, and the one that I settled on was Infusionsoft, which is now called Keep. If you're implementing software for the first time in your life, that is not the one to go with. I love it to this day because I actually know the software well. And there's a funny point to that story too. I'll get to that in a minute. So I go and I get the software and I start using it. That guy retires and I'm like, shit, like, well, that was kind of useless with this coach. But it really wasn't. He laid the groundwork for a lot of other things that were about to happen in my life because everything happens for a reason. So this software has a user group, a local user group, and it pops up this like window on my software one day as I'm using it. It's like, hey, we have a local user group to you. Click here and fill out the form if you want to attend. It's like 2 days from now. All right, cool. I need to learn more about this software. I see it's powerful and it's going to help us in lots of ways that I don't even know about yet. I'll go. So I wound up going to this meeting, and guess what? I meet business coach number 2. That dude, him and I worked together heavily for a couple of years, and I learned a lot from that guy. Really did. Like really sharp guy, smart in business, had previous project management experience, but on a big corporate level, was really dialed in with systems and processes. I pulled a lot from that dude. He said to me one day, hey, you need to brush up on your sales skills. I'm going to drop you into this Facebook group called Sales Talk with Sales Pros. Mind you, we're 2 dudes from New York. And he goes to me, the guy who runs this group's a little rough around the edges. So you might have to just take what he says with a grain of salt and deal with it. And I'm like, come on, how bad could it be? So I go into Sales Talk with Sales Pros. And if anybody here knows, and I'm just being fully transparent, Sales Talk with Sales Pros is a Facebook group run by Ryan Stewman. Yep. And it is a feeder for all of our programs. We basically cultivate leads out of that Facebook group and turn them into paying clients. Yep. Okay. So here I am in the group, and I wind up taking action one day and buying into Apex One, which is kind of cool. Now let me round out the whole story. Fast forward a bunch. I'm going to skip over a bunch of shit here. Fast forward a bunch of stuff. I come in and start working as the COO of Break Free Academy in November 2020. Okay. I come in the door and I'm observing for the first 30 days, right? Like what's going on? How's this work? What do we use for this? What do we use for this? And I get this whole list of the software stack that the company's using. And guess what's at the top? Infusionsoft. Yep. So all that work that I've been doing on the early days and learning that software and basically indoctrinating myself into it and paying for online courses so I can learn it even better. Like, oh, now I know why that shit was handed to me a couple of years ago, because here I am now running a multi-million-dollar organization, and that's the backbone of everything that we do.
The universe is funny like that, huh?
It is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So you come in COO. Mm-hmm. Huh. All right. So your self-development. So you're telling me that your success was not overnight. See, that's crazy. I thought everybody that had anything just got it instantaneously overnight. So this is really good information for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So struggle. Well, I don't know. Would you call it struggling in business up to that point, or was it struggling?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Man, we made every dumb mistake. You know, we weren't the best with money. We knew how to stack up debt pretty quickly. We made those mistakes. Cash flow is always an issue in a service-based business. And the biggest mistake I made in that company, yes, it was successful. Yes, it was doing a couple $1 million a year. Yes, I had 25 or 30 people on my team at any given time. But the problem was we were subcontractors and we relied on the big boys to go out there and sell shit. So we were contractors for AT&T, Verizon, a couple other big companies you probably never heard of that are, niched into that space. But at the end of the day, we were reliant upon those companies to go out and sell their product within our coverage region. If they didn't sell shit, we weren't busy.
Yep.
And that's the wrong way to do it. If I were to do it all over again, I would have gotten in and I would have become a reseller for the product itself, because we were just a wrench. We'd show up and put the gear in and fill out the paperwork, make sure the unit's activated, and we're out. And then we submit the invoice to the company we subcontract for. And
right.
Supposed to pay in 30 days, but we know how that works.
We do. Yeah. And as a technician, the math equation for us in the beginning is, if I do one for X dollars, if I do 10 of those, it's 10 times the money. If I do 100, so I'll just keep hiring techs and crews and tech, and I'll just keep this repeated training. But look, I know how to do GPS so well. I'll just train guys in 30 days and we'll just 10 extra money. This is an infinite supply. Right. And then like you totally lose sight of the fact, I don't know if this happened to you, but being an a recovering technician myself, what happens is your profit margins are only single digit percentages to begin with. And then you're adding all of this overhead to run this company. You're down to 1.5%, 3.5% net on technician services going, what is happening? Yeah. Why? This is everybody else's fault. Yeah. We did the same. We were the subcontractor, and the department we were missing was sales and marketing. Now I could go out and get business because I was really good at what I did. It was not hard. No sales and marketing department. You cannot be the prime contractor. You can't make any money. You can't get, that's cool. You were just telling my story. I didn't mean to talk at all, but you got me really excited. So,
I have conversations with a lot of guys who are still in the industry since I left. And this is, so I've been out now a year and a half or so, maybe 2 years. Even before I was out, the rates that they were paying us for a single install were the same rates they were paying us 10 and 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. They haven't increased the price. And it's kind of disheartening because these are big, like huge international companies. And the model that they have, it's a recurring revenue model. And the whole reason that Verizon and AT&T got into the GPS tracking game, which most people don't understand, is it's all about that little SIM card inside, because every tracking device has a SIM card. And if you know anything about SIM cards, a SIM card is a telephone number. What's the heart of the business that Verizon and AT&T actually do? They sell phone lines.
It's recurring revenue.
Right. It's a recurring line. So for them, it costs them pennies to fire up this line. And yet they go out and they charge the end user, let's call it anywhere from 20 to 50 bucks a month per device for the software integration and how everything works well together, plus the line activation. So here they are over there selling. Do some math here for a second. Let's say it's let's keep it simple. Let's say it's 20 bucks a month, okay, which is a pretty standard industry rate on the low end. 20 bucks a month, and you have a fleet of 400 vehicles. Okay, and then your sales team goes out and sells a fleet of 500 vehicles, and then they go sell a fleet of 10, and then they go sell a fleet of 35. You see how this starts to add up and compound very quickly. So these guys are over there killing it, making dumb money on a recurring revenue model. So once they make the sale, all they have to do is keep up the software and make sure it's functional and make sure that us, the installers, go there and install it properly. Right. As long as that's done, they're golden and they're collecting big money every month. So here they are collecting more money as every month progresses. And yet the rate that they were giving us as installation subcontractors never changed.
Yep. It's like that everywhere.
Yeah. I got tired of that personally. And honestly, I doing a lot of the work in and around the Apex community. I had become a coach at that point too. I just realized, man, that I lost my passion for that. Yeah. Right. And I also knew that if it wasn't for my team and what we did, that the big boys couldn't go out there and make the money. They needed people like us to go out there and have this business model work. And I got tired of getting shit on, to be quite honest with you. Sure. A lot of the customers too, you got to understand, a lot of the trucking companies are required by federal mandate to have tracking devices in their over-the-road trucks. So they don't want this shit, but the federal government comes in and says, you have to do this. Otherwise we're going to fine you. And the fine was ridiculous. It was $14,000 per occurrence.
Yeah. And people love that about the government already. Oh yeah. So yeah.
So we show up to install these. We show up to install these and the truck owners or the truckers, they just be like, not happy, didn't want to see us, or they would intentionally no-show the appointment. And every time I got no-showed, it was costing me money. So I was like, you know what? This is great for the time. Actually, let me rephrase. This company was good, but I know that I'm here for great reasons. And it goes back to core values, and my book talks about core values heavily. Like my main core value that I live and die by is I refuse to be average. And in my eyes, I had built this average business. Yes, it looked good on paper. Yes, we were helping people make money. Yes, I had done some cool things with it, but it was average, right? It wasn't a great company. So I needed to get rid of that average in order to make room to step into a great company or a great position or go build a great business. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So
But people thought I was fucking crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You walked away from what you built. It did become successful on the standard, right? It went from struggling to success. You walked away to be great.
I really had built a company at that point, and it was, and the difference, by the way, for those listening, if you have to show up every day and push the buttons and make things happen, you don't own a business, you own a job. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you own a company, right, you actually have people in place who do that shit for you. So you can literally shut off your phone and close your laptop for 3 weeks, and the company still is in good shape or has survived by the time you get back, then you own a business.
That's right.
And I had to put that to the test a couple of years into that company being operational because my son had gotten sick, and I had to walk away for those 3 weeks and see it work. So once I saw it work, I was like, okay, cool. And as I started to lose more and more interest in the company, right, the passion, I started doing less and less. And the less I did, the more money I made.
Yeah.
Right. Which is crazy. People told me that, and I was like, no, bullshit. There's no way. Because I'm still thinking with that technician brain where you have to go and turn the wrench and install, swing the hammer, you got to do all that shit in order to increase the profit. And this is the complete opposite of what I've been taught my entire life. So it was a strange situation to be in, but I'm grateful that I did it. People thought I was nuts. You know, here I have this business at any given time. I mean, dude, like on autopilot, I'm making 250 grand a year, whether I show up to the office, whether I make a phone call, send an email, I got that money coming in.
So how do you do that? So how does that happen at home? Right? Father of 3, wife, how do you, man, I mean, buy in on your core values must be intrinsic on a home level too. It would have to be, I would imagine, to present that to my wife would support it too. Sure. And I'll tell you, I mean, I'm assuming that's what happened, obviously, because you're still married. But I'm curious, I would like to kind of, if you could dive into that a little bit, like, how do you bring that home? Because you have to bring that home to walk away from $250,000 a year. Sure. To chase a passion. People talk about passion all the time.
Yep. You know, number one, I got a unicorn of a wife. She's been super supportive since day one, right? She had also seen the not so good sides of a business partnership. She had seen me coming home stressed out because I was fighting with my business partner. You know, she had seen the ridiculous phone calls and emails coming in at late hours that were just like ripping apart my soul. And until I put up boundaries and said, hey, I don't give a fuck who you are in my life, that shit ain't happening. Right. Until I got the backbone strong enough to go ahead and implement that, things didn't start to change for the better. But let me go back to the values here. Being involved in Apex Executives and being an Apex Executives coach awarded me a really cool opportunity a couple of years ago. It was actually 2 years ago this month in February. So it was the very first trip to Cabo that Ryan Stewman put on. And he said, hey, you're a coach. I'd love to get you down there. You know, you come hang out, interact with the people, get to enjoy this too. And when I talk about this Cabo trip, it's not like just a normal trip to Cabo. We fly down there on private jets and we stay in the most exclusive mansions in El Pedregal. It's an experience. And it was one that I had never had up until that point either. So we go down there. And the day or so before, Stewman hits me up and he goes, hey, we got a really good guest coming to stay with us and speak one of the days that we're going to be there. I'm like, oh, cool. Who is it? He goes, you know who Steve Weatherford is? I'm like, yeah, like Steve Weatherford, the football player.
Like
He's
NFL
like,
Super Bowl ring wearing.
he goes, yeah, that's Steve
Yeah.
Weatherford. I'm like, oh yeah, I know, because me being a kid growing up in New York,
Mm-hmm.
he played for the Jets and the Giants and actually won a Super Bowl with the Giants. So cool. All right, I'm going to meet Steve Weatherford. How's it going to go? I don't know. So anyway, go down this trip, interact with him, hanging out with him. He was there with his wife, have some conversations. We eat some food. We drink a couple beers. He's just a good dude. And he gets up there the last day we're in Cabo, and he starts talking about some of his routines that he has in place with his kids, right? And he starts talking about how he puts them to bed and wakes them up every morning by speaking champion over them. Like, wake up, champion. Champion, it's time to go to bed.
Wow.
He's instilling that champion mindset into their head. And over time, it's going to wind up happening on a subconscious level because he's constantly saying it. So I'm like, all right, cool. It really impacted me in a positive manner. And I'm giving you the real brief overview version of that too.
Sure.
So I get home, and side note, I came home, and this is before the world knew what COVID was. And I came home with a deathly ill COVID for 2.5, almost 3 weeks. It was awful. Anyway, I heal back up.
So it came from Cabo, not from China.
No,
Gotcha.
see, here's the deal. 2 weeks prior, I was in Atlantic City, right? And it hit me when I was in Cabo. So I'm assuming 2 weeks prior, when I was in Atlantic City at a trade show, I got it there.
Gotcha.
Anyway, so I come home and I clear my mind finally, start feeling better. And here I am. I'm the guy who wrote the book on core values, right? And I'm thinking, I'm like, cool, I've got business core values. I've got my own personal core values in place. And I look around my house and I'm like, I don't have a core value or core values set for my home. I'm like, fuck, like that's a gut check. Like, here I am, the core values expert, and I just found a gaping hole in my own ecosystem. All right, well, how do we fix this? Going back to my kids, and if you've ever heard me speak on stage about core values, at Top Class, my last installation company, we started with 7 core values, and it was too many for my team to remember them. It was like pulling teeth. So I had to dumb them down to 4. And when I got them to 4, the team was able to finally grasp what they were and start to memorize them well. So I use the same line of thinking. Like, okay, I've got 3 kids at home. Okay, I've got, and I'll give you their ages now. So my oldest daughter is 7, and I have twins who are 5. So this is 2 years ago. My oldest was 5. My twins were 3. So a 5-year-old and 2 3-year-olds, they're not going to remember 4 core values. It's not going to happen.
One. Yeah.
But if we can get 1 in there, and I could drill it into their head each and every day, they'll memorize that shit forever. And that's exactly what I did, right? And it's real simple. The core value that we have, we live and die by in this house, is we're champions. We always do our best and we never give up. That's it. So I literally speak that over my kids every night when I put them to bed. And it's to the point now where if I don't ask them, hey, are we champions? And then they actually recite it back to me. If I don't ask them, they're like, hey, Daddy, you forgot to ask us, for champions.
That's awesome.
It's like, oh, okay, cool. So, I mean, like, this is the little shit that people are like, it doesn't make a difference. No, it fucking does. It does. Because now it's at a point where, look, man, I love my son to death. He's 5 years old. And if you've got kids, you understand this fully. As great as they are, occasionally they can just be assholes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
We're really annoying. Or yeah. Yeah.
So I'm very transparent with my kids. I'm not saying or recommending this to anybody else, but if my kid's being an asshole, my exact language to him is, Thomas, stop being an asshole.
Yeah. That's my wife right there. Stop being a dick. All right.
Right. And on occasion, if he's really not being good, I'll throw in, hey, you're not acting like a champion right now. The moment that I say that, everything changes. He will stop in his tracks right then and there, stand up straight, and get his ass corrected immediately because he knows about that value.
It's real. It's deep. Yeah. You have them totally bought in.
Yep.
Totally bought in. That's amazing. So let me ask, did that happen prior to the change, right? Prior to the exit of the business, the move?
Yep.
Do you think that made a tremendous impact on your family being behind you and saying, okay?
Partially, but I don't think that's the real piece of the puzzle,
Okay.
My kids were so young at the time when we moved. COVID was at its peak. They hadn't been in school or seen their kids in months at that point.
You were in New York.
Yeah. And
Okay.
my wife, not only did she buy in, but I also explained, listen, she's an adult, thank God, and happens to be intelligent herself. I was able to explain to her, hey, these are the financial reasons. These are the opportunistic reasons. These are the business reasons of why we'd be much better off as a family moving from New York to Dallas. And at first it wasn't Dallas. We had a much broader scope than just Dallas. And then what wound up happening was I wound up coming down here every damn month for almost 3 years, get real familiar with the place, and you get to know the people, and you get to explore and see the area, not as a tourist, but more as a local. And okay, you know what? That one's top of the list now. The biggest piece of criteria for us was we needed to move to a state that had no state income tax.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Man, it's funny you are speaking about this so simply. The core values, the family buy-in. You're like, yeah, of course, and it made sense. And I talked to a lot of men, and I really do mean men. I talk to a lot of men who don't get buy-in from their significant others, and one of the big, I call it an epiphanies that I've had, and a lot of this came from talking to Chris Whitehead, is like we earn buy-in over time by being trustworthy, by saying these are my values and then actually acting on them, not just holding other people accountable while we hold ourselves with excuses. And it's cool to me. I'm like watching you talk about this and you're like, it's so deep with you that you're like, yeah, probably. I don't know. And I'm like, man, this is really big. Like this is so much of your routine and your discipline. But for some people listening, I think they're going, this could blow some people's minds. Like, I don't know how I would ever do that. That's crazy. I just wanted to clarify, like that whole value, buy-in, support, even when it's financial and intelligent, it's still, we kind of have to earn that. Right. And I think as entrepreneurs, like, at least for me in the beginning, I would say a lot and then not do a lot at home. I would say, yeah, I'll be home for dinner Tuesday. Yeah. And then I wouldn't even fucking think about it twice. I'd go to work till I was done working, come home. Everybody mad at me. Like, what?
Yeah.
Well, you fucking said you were going to be here at 6 and whatever, it's fine. And then I go, well, how dare you be mad at me? Don't you know what I do all day? Yeah, I do this free. And I just think it's incredible how it was just so cool to me watching you laid back, like, yeah, it's no big deal. We just, live by full integrity and do what the fuck we say we're going to do. And I'm like, man, there's a lot of people not doing that, Thomas. There's a lot of people. You and I had a discussion about anxiety recently, which changed my life, to be honest, very quickly, because I have been living by values for a long time. And what you said to me, you and Mike, was your anxiety is a physical manifestation of your body knowing you're living out of integrity with yourself. Fucking fixed it. I went home and I fucking fixed it that night. And I'm not anxious anymore.
Good.
Yeah. And so I didn't mean to, when it dawned on me how I was like trying to pull this out of you, I'm like, come on. I'm like, get really excited about it. And I was like, he doesn't have to. This is life for you. This ain't a new thing. Core values and the discipline and having integrity. It ain't about excitement. It's about daily discipline.
Dude, this is as excited as I get in life. Seriously. Like those who know me, like I'm not the guy to go rah rah and do fucking backflips in front of you on stage. Like it's not me. Right. So whether I have to have a very firm conversation with you, like in a not so good way, or I have to go tell you some bad news, or I got to go and tell you something that excites the shit out of me, like you're getting the same face either way. Like
this is the same Thomas every time. Okay, good to know. That's good for me. Is that because you're an integrator? Is that have some personality trait there where like that's just who you are? It's like that's
realistically, dude, I try to keep myself even keeled. I really do, for multiple reasons. One of them is I know what happens when I go off the deep end, and I don't get, if I flip out, it's not good. It's not good for anybody around. right? I've done dumb shit because I'm angry.
Yep.
And then you regret things afterwards. You don't feel good about it. That's a main reason why. So I try to keep a cap on blowing the lid off because it's just not good, right? That's probably the main reason.
Sure.
I also feel that as a leader, you have to basically keep yourself level-headed in any situation, whether it's fucking amazing or it's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And I've witnessed this firsthand with my kids, right? If you react, right, whatever that reaction is, something bad happens, your kid falls down, scrapes and cuts their leg, and you run over there like, oh my God, you're cut. I mean,
Yep, it's an emergency.
That kid's reaction is awful, and they're screaming like nuts for 2 days.
Yep.
When let's say you're sitting out in front of your house on a stoop or a lounge chair or some shit, and your kid falls down, scrapes their knee. If you pause for a second or 2 seconds, right, you get up nice and slow and you walk over there calmly, and you then help your child. How do you think their reaction is going to be?
I've done it for years. They just look at you and wait.
Mm-hmm.
It's calm.
Yeah.
It's calm. Sometimes I even go, you're okay, bud. Take a deep breath. You're okay. And then all of a sudden he's like, shit, all right, fuck, I was going to cry and stuff. I guess I'll walk away. Like,
yeah, but listen, you get it. But that little lesson right there applies to any leadership position. So whether it's you leading your team in the office, in the field, or it's you leading your kids and your wife at home, the same shit applies. Everyone has always got their fucking eyeballs on the leader at all times. Yeah. And you can't change my mind otherwise. So it's super important that you always act within accordance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Even with significant other or in any other group you're a part of it. Yeah. Well, see, it's funny. I've been doing it with my kid longer than my staff because I'm not a great integrator, though I thought I was for a while, but I used to get excited about an opportunity. And before it was real, before I had any discipline to go after it, any actual commitment, I would like announce it, talk about it. I'd be like, this. And everybody would be like, oh, that's incredible. And then a month later, I'd figure out that it wasn't for us. It wasn't for me. It wasn't going to happen. And then everybody be like, what the fuck? What the fuck happened? I have one guy who's been with me for a long time, and he used to make this comment that didn't hit me until it hit me. And he used to say, oh, yeah. No, I have all the faith in the world in Sam doing what he says he's going to do. I just have no faith in his timelines. And I used to laugh and I thought it was funny and everybody thought it was cute. And then one day it actually hit me what that meant. And what it actually meant was that I didn't follow through on shit.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying.
Respect your time.
I didn't respect my time. I didn't respect their time. I didn't value that. You know what I mean? Respecting my time is a whole different therapy session we could go into. Though I am getting better with guidance from people like you. I am definitely getting better. But yeah, I find that I totally agree with you. But yeah, especially like significant others coming home from work and complaining about your day for an hour sets the tone in your house for negativity and distraught and you're supposed to come home and be a leader, and you're supposed to come home and be the rock and be the support. You're supposed to come home. And that's why I think like where we have like this mastermind of people, we have a network of people that get us that we can call and say, that sucked. That thing I just tried and failed at, that fucking blows. And you can be like, yeah, it sounds like it blows. Cool. Move on. And then I can go home to my wife and be like, hey, you look fucking hot today. How you doing? You trying to have some, and I don't have to take that home anymore. I don't have to bring that with me and look like a dummy, like look like I can't handle the world. Right. Emotional intelligence is kind of, I think, what you were talking about there, keeping it level-headed, emotional intelligence. Yeah. That's cool, man.
Yeah. EQ is a big thing for me. I think that it's a tough subject. I don't know enough about the subject to really talk deep on it, but I don't know if emotional intelligence is something that you could really train on so much. And maybe I'm wrong, but most people who I know who have a decent level of emotional intelligence, they kind of had it since day one.
Yeah. I don't have any argument for you there. I don't want to say it's untrainable because it sounds like hopeless, but You said, I mean, when you talked in the beginning and you talked about, I came to a point of believing there was more. I believe that thought is rooted in emotional intelligence, but you're so working so hard and technicianing so hard that you didn't give yourself any time to have thought.
No.
We don't give ourselves time for the emotions, the intelligence to kick in, the brain to actually work, or you call it decision-making fatigue, decision fatigue. And so it's interesting. Yeah. That alone, I think, comes from that. You knew intrinsically that you weren't doing it right.
I did. And, I often say, if anybody reads my Facebook post, small steps forward daily, right? This shit doesn't happen overnight, the success, like you alluded to earlier. So what was the very first thing I started to do, right? So I was on the road a lot in my last company before I had built the business, and I was in there working as a technician. I was clocking 30, 40, 50,000 miles a year. Okay. Just driving all over the Northeast. And I had a choice to make, right? I can continue spending all this time behind the windshield, listening to Howard Stern episodes and listening to music, or I could start to substitute some of that shit with audiobooks and podcasts. And it started with audiobooks because podcasts weren't even that popular then at the time. All right. And I started getting these audiobooks in, and I started like, oh shit, like this guy's talking about the exact situation I'm in my business right now. Oh shit, I didn't know you could do that. And that is what started to spark the idea. And then what I would do is I'd get home, and then I'd have an hour free here and there, a weekend or whatnot. And I'd start working on some of that stuff and then implementing it into the business and seeing the good changes happen. So yeah, man, like this shit ain't happening overnight. If you think you're going to become rich and successful and amazing in a 24-hour window, the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here, indeed. And in fact, until I dedicated to just getting better, regardless of the end result, I never got it. I hit and stayed at ceilings for a long time.
Yep.
And when the focus has just been, I'm just going to get better at all of it. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't give a shit. And then good things just started. You said it earlier, started working less, focusing on better things. I had more money. I had more time. I had it. Yeah. I'm a firm believer that the universe responds accordingly to what we're putting out on an energy level. Well, I don't have to go all down there, but
it's all good,
dude,
man.
No, look, I appreciate it. We'll end it here because I think you have a lot more to offer, which means now I have to cut it so that I can convince you to come back on later and we can pick this back up. Yeah, no, I really appreciate you. So look, the name of the podcast is Never Stop Building. And obviously there's reasons for that. My send-off question for you is just, if you were to give the audience something that you're committed to never stopping building, what is that?
Fine-tuning the structure of one's day and calendar.
Stop, Thomas, please. It's personal tax.
It's always evolving, right? So step one is you have to start living and dying by the calendar. Whatever the fuck it is, if it's important, it's on your calendar. But just because you've done a time study and you figured out where you're wasting your time and you've gotten rid of that and you're focusing on the tasks that are the highest and most use of your time kind of deal. Cool. Awesome. What happens 3 months from now when you become a new person? Because I hate to break it to you, everyone should be evolving constantly.
Yes. And
if you're not adjusting that calendar to continue with your evolution as a person, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Okay. You said earlier, backbone to also stick, right? The backbone to stick to the calendar stuff.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, here's the deal. Dumb it down for you real easy. Especially for entrepreneurs, small business owners, or team leaders who don't have that boss looking over their shoulder, right?
Yep.
Who's the one telling you what to do and when to do it? Especially as a small business owner. Like the whole goddamn reason we do it is for this thing called freedom. We get to make the decisions and do what we want when we want to do, which is almost a lie because that really never happens.
Separate podcast. We'll go
separate podcast.
Separate podcast.
But who's the one telling you what to do, when to do it, right? And in my case, it's the calendar. Like, bro, Ryan Stewman doesn't call me up and say, you need to do this right now. Like, that's not the relationship we have, right? Yes, I am the COO of his company, and technically, I sit under him on the org chart. But at the same point in time, My calendar is the one telling me what to do. My calendar is the one that reminded me that I had to come here today and record this podcast with you. My calendar is the one reminding me right now over here to the side, because I see my screen just light up. It's telling me that I've got a call upcoming in the next 12 minutes from my next item on my calendar, right? So you've got to get dialed in there, because the calendar is your boss. The calendar tells you what to do. And if it's not on the fucking calendar, it doesn't exist. But this is, people look at it like, oh, well, you can't live a structured life that way. Yeah, I can actually. Okay. Because by setting up this structure, it frees up my mind and I have less decision fatigue. I don't think about shit. I don't worry about shit. When I go to bed at night, I open up that phone one last time and I look at the calendar for the next day. All right, cool. I know what I gotta do. I put the phone down, I close my eyes, and I'm out within 3 minutes. Ask my wife.
Done.
Yep, done. I'm not worried about it. My next day is already structured and set up.
Done. Time at home is time at home. No stress about tomorrow. Calendar's got it covered. No decision fatigue.
Yes, sir.
See, that sounds like a successful life. That sounds cool. That's awesome, dude. Thank you for, man, that's the move right there. So look, before we send it off, you have a call. Where can people find you? What's the best way to find you? Where, how, social channels, what you got?
Yeah, best way, connectwiththomas.com. That's a landing page that links out to every place that I live online. Website, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that crap's there.
Okay. Connectwiththomas.com.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Dude, thank you again for coming on here. And hey, if you're listening, hey, rate, review, subscribe. It helps tremendously. The goal here is to bring you value. So thanks for listening. Thomas, seriously, I really appreciate you coming on today. And we're signing off. See you later.